name is Liu, a scientific content analyst from the Leader Associates. Welcome to this interview, a special event for the International Women's Day. On the momentous occasion of the March 8th International Women's Day, in a partnership with the Women in the Renewable Alliance, I humbly invited Ms. Marijia as a 2023 Impact Campaigner of the BERA to join our interview and jointly celebrate the role and the strengths of the women who are leading and championing the clean energy transition. And today, let's welcome the Ms. Marijia joining our interview. So, Ms. Marijia, could you simply introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Maria. I'm the founder and managing director here at Synapse. And Synapse is a software and advisory firm that specializes in wholesale electricity markets and the transition to clean energy.
Oh yeah, so I'm getting started question by your journey. So how did you get into the renewable energy industry? So I just know you studied the engineering subject, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been in the energy industry my whole career, and actually while I was at university, I did a thesis on how battery storage could be used in wind farms in South Australia, many years before we had battery storage there. But really what got me interested in this field was that I recognized early on that climate change was going to be the single biggest challenge that human civilization would face in my lifetime. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of the solution. And when you think about what we can do, decarbonizing electricity grids is probably the single biggest thing that we can do over the next decade. And I'm really motivated and excited to be a part of that journey.
Wow, amazing. So could you please tell us about your company, Synapse? I understand you from the experience that you stand out as an engineer. So what made you want to become entrepreneur?
Yeah, so before I started Synapse, I worked in the corporate world, and that was definitely a great place to learn the ropes of the industry. But as time went on, I got to the stage where I felt that I was capable of having such a bigger impact in the clean energy transition if I went out on my own rather than staying in the corporate world. So a lot of corporates can be very slow to move. There's always politics. And I just wanted to get things done. I'm really driven by seeing that on the ground impact of my work, and that's why I'm here.
Wow, okay. So during today, what is the things you most proud of so far, do you think? Yeah.
At Synapse, we've been involved in bringing some of the most innovative clean energy projects to life, whether it's big batteries or virtual power plants, all electric suburbs. We've always been on that cutting edge, which I really love. Now, some people might know us best as consultants. So we started about 6 years ago, but what's actually quite exciting in our journey is that about 1 year ago now, we launched our first software product. So that's called the Synapse platform. And that's really allowing us to scale the impact that we have and to unlock more investment in large-scale wind, solar, battery, pumped hydro. So we're thrilled to be working with some of the biggest developers in Australia with that tool. And we're also moving into US markets this year. So I'm super excited to see what the future will hold for us.
Yeah, that's really cool. So Ms. Marijia, do you think are you an early bird? Did you wake up early every day morning or?
Well, I have to say, I'm not one of those crazy people that will get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. That's not me. So I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think somewhere in the middle for me.
Okay, so what motivates you getting up every day morning to get down to the work? What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's the most inspiring about the clean energy industry is that sense of purpose that you have with your work. I know that every day that I get up, I am contributing to something that is far bigger than myself. We're at the forefront of the biggest transformation in the history of the energy system. You know, we're on the ground moving things forward. So I love to be a part of that. You know, it's not like some other jobs where you clock on, clock off, can't wait for the weekend. I'm always really pumped to get on with my day and see how we can contribute today.
Okay, nice. So I have a few questions about your leadership. So what does it mean to be a woman in your leader position? Like, do you see some of the difficult or some difference?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess one thing about having risen to a leadership role that I'm quite conscious about is that I am someone who is in the public sphere a fair bit. So you will see me talking about energy issues in the media and being on the speaking circuit. And I'm always really hopeful that, you know, if other women see women like myself out there, that will encourage them and give them the confidence to put their hand up and get involved in some of those opportunities. And then also hopefully for the journalists and event organisers, they might think, oh, well, these women, they have something okay to say, we should maybe bring more of them into our programs.
Okay, so what are the biggest difficulties have encountered in your career? Just like you just start founding your company or something you want to change? Yeah,
so this is a really excellent question, because what I have found is that as I have progressed through my career and done different things, the challenges have evolved. So earlier in my career, you know, one of the challenges that I had was I just wasn't very good at advocating for myself. So when it comes to, you know, discussions around promotions and pay rises, and I think this is something that a lot of women struggle with, whereas, you know, men are socialized a little bit differently and they're a bit more aggressive in taking what they want, if you will. So it's a bit of a learning curve for a lot of women. And even, you know, things like if you're applying for a position, if a woman meets, you know, 9 out of the 10 criteria, you might still think, oh, I'm not sure if I deserve that role. But, you know, if a man has 1 out of the 10, he'll feel more confident about it. So I mean, that was a challenge that I faced. And, you know, now as an entrepreneur, one of the different challenges I face is that there is very much what I call a startup bro culture, if you will. And it's just not something that I identify with at all. So you do feel a little bit on your own, but, you know, I'm trying to forge my own path there.
yeah, it's not easy. So what do you think the gender equity means in the energy transition?
So I'm
That's
not
quite
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure whether equality is the right word there. I mean, it makes sense when we're talking about a monetary context. So say, for example, if someone is making an equal contribution to a business, then of course they should receive equal pay. I mean, that's an obvious gap that we need to address. But I think where the problem with words with equality sometimes comes in is that we often assume as the starting point that male is the default. And, you know, trying to make everyone equal on that basis isn't necessarily a desirable outcome. So what I mean by this is, say, as we see more women rising through the leadership ranks, we actually need to embrace the diversity in thinking, leadership and communication styles that they bring, rather than assuming that they have to, you know, fit the mold of the male leaders before them. Diversity is, you know, most valuable when we're going through such a profound change as we are in the energy sector. Or, you know, to give you a slightly different example of this, I still hear many stories of women on sites and in trades in our sector who, for example, can't find or don't have access to PPE that fits them properly because male bodies are assumed to be the default. So that's the problem when we kind of assume male is the default and try to make everyone equal on that. It's really about embracing that diversity. And we can't say that we are embracing diversity if being diverse isn't a real option.
So you as the leader, so in your opinion, what does the clean energy industry need to improve its track record of encouraging and nurturing diverse talent?
So I went to an AIE Young Energy Professionals Women in Energy event earlier this week. And I have to say, I was blown away by the talent that young women are bringing to our sector. So the talent is there. It definitely exists in abundance. Now we need to walk the walk. So one of the really important things I think is, all organizations, they really need to have women in visible leadership positions. Because if you want to attract that emerging talent that's coming through, if they can see people in your organization who look like them, who are progressing in the company, they're going to, feel much better about that workplace. Because, no one wants to be someone's diversity experiment. And this is something, when I'm mentoring women earlier on in their career, I always encourage them when they're thinking about their future career opportunities is to really think about, okay, well, the company that you're interviewing with, what is their track record with promoting women? Because if they've already demonstrated that they can do that, that kind of environment is going to open up so many more doors for women, whereas organizations who aren't doing this as well, they're going to find it much more difficult to be able to attract that top talent, if they're only tapping into 50% of the population.
Yeah, so which female leader do you admire?
Yeah, there's several that I really look up to. So one that I'll mention is Catherine McConnell. She's the founder and CEO of an energy fintech company called Bright. Now they are one of the startup success stories in Australia out of the energy sector. They've grown massively, and as someone who is a female entrepreneur, it's really inspiring to see that modeled out and to see the growth that they've been able to achieve. I'd also like to give a shout out to 𝐿𝐵𝐸𝐴. So she runs a boutique consultancy called 𝐏𝐫𝐨𝐼𝐸𝐷. And Stephanie has been the regulation queen in the Australian energy market. She's been on the forefront of, pushing through good reforms, blocking the bad ones, and she's really almost single-handedly been having a massive impact on our sector.
Yep. So the next question is really interesting. So, looking back at your career, is there anything you would do differently, knowing what do you now like? Going back, or would you do some different choice? Maybe you are not an entrepreneur, maybe you're doing the other subject.
No, I think I'd always be, I think I always would have gone down the entrepreneurial route. But I have to say, looking back in my career, I am quite proud of what I've done. I've always stayed true to my purpose. I feel like I've had courage in pushing the clean energy transition forward. And that hasn't been an easy road by any means. It's had a lot of challenges. So I'm quite kind of happy with that. If there's one thing that I would change, it would perhaps be, as I alluded to earlier, just learning how to advocate for myself sooner. That took me many, many years more than it should have.
Okay, excellent. So please pass the messages to the next generation of women who aspire to become the renewable energy leaders and entrepreneur like you. Do you have some advice?
So the clean energy transition is very multidisciplinary. And that's actually great, because what it means is that regardless of what your skill set is, there's probably an area where you can get involved in and eventually become a leader. So whether it's in engineering, finance, legal, comms, community engagement, we need all of that and more. So, definitely if you have a passion for this and you feel like this is something that you're interested in, there's no shortage of opportunities for you to get involved in. Now, my advice for entrepreneurship is a little bit different. The honest answer there is that entrepreneurship isn't for 90% of people. Being an entrepreneur is very different to being an employee. It is all consuming. It can be mentally grueling. It does bleed into your personal life. And at the end of the day, you are taking on quite a considerable financial risk. So, I feel like this is very much my calling. I could never go back and work for someone else, but I also want to be very real in that, this isn't a path that's full of sunshine, rainbows, and glossy magazines. it is quite tough. So for anyone who's thinking about entrepreneurship, I mean, I would really encourage them to be introspective and think about what is it that really fulfills you in life, and is starting a business something that's going to fuel that positively, or is it something that's going to detract from your fulfillment, and really being honest about that.
Yeah, what valuable suggestions. So how would you celebrate the International Women's Day in our portrait? Did you give you a half-day vacation, your company's female, or some have the special events celebrated?
So for me, International Women's Day is so much more than just having a pink cupcake in the office kitchen. You know, when we think about the history of International Women's Day, it did start as a protest, and it was really about the liberation of women. So while it's good to address you know, issues that in the clean energy sector specifically, I always also like to take the opportunity to draw attention to the broader issues in society that are still a challenge for us. So I mean, I'll take the opportunity now just to talk a little bit about domestic violence. So here in Australia, you know, intimate partner violence is actually the greatest health risk factor for women aged 25 to 44. It is the leading cause of homelessness for women. And unfortunately, every single week in Australia, a woman is killed by a male partner. So there are quite serious issues that we still need to overcome. And I do hope that International Women's Day gives us that opportunity to start some of these more deeper questions and conversations that we need to have about the role and status of women in our society.
Okay, so that's